What's up, everybody? Back in here again. Uncommon NASA. I'm here with Tracy Jones himself right now. We just put out Humancloud Abandonment for a second time, this time better than even the first time. I'm pumped to be talking to Tracy, man. I haven't talked to you in physical non-text form in years. So
Yeah,
you know, Tracy, what do you got to say right now?
nice to see you, bro.
Yeah, man, good to see you too, man. I'm happy to talk to you because not only do I love the record, obviously, putting it out twice and then bringing it back all these years later,
Yeah,
I just I feel like for people to really understand the album and the appeal of it, like I feel like there's a couple of different stories that should be told about you and the record. So I would say this, like we met in New York back in the days, probably through Zesto, and we did shows together and just did the whole indie rap thing in the mid 2000s.
yeah.
And at the time when you left, you were the first person that I knew, because I was in my mid 20s then, that like just started traveling all over the fucking place. And like
Yeah.
I've since known other people that have done that, and it's not, to 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 42-year-old NASA, it's not as off as like to 25-year-old NASA. But
Oh
just
yeah.
get into like if for everybody that's watching, like, your story to me is really fascinating. And like um for as much as you're comfortable with, a lot or a little, whatever, like can you just talk about like your journeys outside of the US, and what drove you to leave and then what drove you to come back? Because right now I should say that you're back here in the States where you're filming right now.
What up? Well, first of all, I want to say, I mean, first time I ever heard, the name NASA was like, it's like, yo, that dude's with Jooks, like that's the engineer, like we was, you know what I'm saying, like.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember, I think, I can't remember the shows, Williamsburg, Def Jux, New Blood,
Oh
something like
yeah, yeah. That was the North Six, man. That was the first show
that.
I ever did my entire life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember that.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. So yeah. So when you approached me about, initially about putting this record out, I was just like beside myself, like really, like and I was real honored that you even listened to it. So yeah, it
Sure.
was a big deal personally.
All right,
Uh,
man. Thank you.
yeah, no doubt. So yeah, I mean, when I left, yeah, that was what was that? That was at the end of 2005, and I basically had just my wheels were spent. I was just like, yo, I'm just gonna travel and just write. That was basically it. Um, I left New York City with $100 in my pocket, and I flew to San Francisco. The last person I saw in New York was Lifelong. Shout out to my boy Lifelong.
Yo, word.
Yeah, I lugged my stuff to his crib. We talked half the night, you know what I'm saying, and kicked it, and then I bounced to San Francisco.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't want to get too much into it because I definitely have a lot to write about too.
Word.
But let's just say, whatever questions, I'm open. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I pretty much just I traveled. I was a vagabond, dog. I went to San Francisco. I traveled cross country by train. Saw the whole United States.
Wow.
From my window, I was riding. I went back home to Orlando, Central Florida. Um, yeah, and then I just kept traveling for a while until finally I settled back down in San Francisco, and then me and my wife got back together. We were on and off for years, and but it was like it was just time, and she's always been the one. So it
Mm.
was like I never knew you, and my wife's Japanese, and I never knew her in her own country, and I was like, let me just go to Japan and
Wow.
you know we'll see how that goes. So I get to know you in your cultural context because we met in school. You know what I'm saying? She was an exchange student.
Wow. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
So like when I went to Tokyo, Japan, uh, a week after I got there, we were supposed to get married on that Friday, which was the 3/11 earthquake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm from Orlando, man. I'm from
Yeah.
Florida. So it's like I know earthquakes, I know tornadoes, hurricanes, but earthquakes, it was like, I was watching buildings sway. I was watching people lose balance. I was waiting in front of City Hall. We were just gonna get married, and all these people. It was nuts. Subway stop. My wife, I think she walked like 4 hours. You know what I mean? She was at work, and
Wow.
I was jet lagged too, and so we ended up getting married that Monday. Yeah,
Wow. That's
yeah,
crazy, man.
yeah,
That's yeah, you've lived like a few lives, you know what I mean? Like there's so many things. But
yeah, yeah,
yo, so now you're back in the States. Welcome back.
yeah.
Things are still horrible. Maybe worse, debatably. So I mean, how has it been getting your footing? I mean, I feel like it's been really amazing timing because when I hit you up to put this back out, I mean, I should say to you too, I've been saying it, but like um basically I was in one of the many quarantines. I mean, I'm still sort of in a quarantine to some degree because I don't really do anything anymore. And in New York, that's like a drastic difference
Yeah,
than in some of the smaller cities where your life doesn't change that much besides you see less people. I'm actually like just not doing shit. So I'm in here doing work in the studio, and like I'm in quarantine, and somewhere along the line, like I saw the files for Humancloud Abandonment, and I was like, you know what, I want to listen to this again. Like I hadn't heard it in a while, and I threw it on, and I was like, whoa, like this is still hitting me the same way it hit me in
wow.
2007 or 2006 when I first heard it. And at the same time, me and Short Fuse were building about putting together like what became Uncommon Restoration, which I can show you and others. This is the result
Oh,
of that conversation. So
that's beautiful, man.
and
Wow.
it came out really dope, man. Yours will be going out in the mail once this weekend is over,
Okay.
and you know, we were talking about that at the same time, and it all came together perfectly. You know what I mean? Like where it was like, we were just about to start this 7-inch label, and then I had just heard Human Cloud Abandonment, and it just felt like the perfect way to start, you know.
Oh, man. Thank you.
So, you know, what I was leading to is like that basically all happened, and I hit you up, and I had no idea that you were coming back to the United States. So it's pretty crazy that like, you've your album has returned to the masses, and you have returned in physical form to the U.S. So how's
No,
that going? How's that going for you so far?
I mean, it's crazy. It's like, there's just so many revelations, man. The United States government doesn't care about its people, doesn't take care of its people. Our healthcare system is a sham.
Yeah,
Uh, in Japan, I've probably been to the doctor in Japan more times than I've ever been to the doctor in my whole life in living in America.
mm-hmm.
Like any little thing, my wife, oh, you should go to the doctor. I'm like, unless my arm's falling off, it's like I'll just let it heal or something, you know. So thank God for there were I was able to go to the doctor, man, and then seeing us go through things here as far as what people go through with their health. And you go to different hospitals here, it's a different price. In Japan, the
Yeah,
price is the same. There's a cap. You know what I mean? They can't charge you something different from hospital to hospital, and they pay 70% of your health bill. You know what I mean?
yeah,
um but not only that, but just with the realization of how America ends and begins with race,
yeah,
how everyone plays their role in this caste system.
mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, poor white people are in the middle, and they're the buffer between rich and black people, and even middle class white people. And just to watch it play out and watch what happened, with the insurrection and all that. Um, it's been a tailspin, dude. It has been dizzying, you know.
I would
Um,
imagine so, man. Like, and
yeah,
what you said about like, America's obsession with race is different than other countries. I mean, you've written about different things in Japan, and
yeah,
plenty of people have written and talked about things in Europe, and I am smart enough and wise enough to know for myself, but also to listen to people of color, that like things are not like a Shangri-La in like Europe or in Asia or any place like that in terms of race. But I just feel like, in the people that I have talked to, including yourself, including traveling to the United Kingdom myself, and my good friend Duke 01, and Last Sons, and touring with them, and we had a lot of these deep conversations out there. Like, it is different here. It's different for historical reasons, obviously. And it's strange, man. It's you come to grips with it. I don't know if you come to grips with it as much as you. I hope that I at least understand it. What the difference is. It's very sad.
mm,
Everything that is said and done in the United States, um, you know, sometimes justified and sometimes not, travels back through racial lines. And it definitely creates a feeling where nobody is allowed to breathe, particularly people of color. And that's a huge thing. And I wouldn't say that I didn't understand that before I traveled abroad. And I've only been to the United Kingdom. I've been up to Montreal, but that's as far as I've traveled,
right.
outside of the United States.
Mm,
And I was lucky enough that when I was in the UK, that I didn't just like play London and go home. Like, I did like 8 dates out there. So I saw pretty much the whole country,
wow.
which is great, and fortunate. And me and Duke and P, Furious P, who's a DJ in Last Sons, when we toured, we compared notes on the health system too. And like some of the things that I was telling them about, like how with certain insurances you have to have a referral to see a specialist, and you have to wait
Right.
to make an appointment. You have to make a second appointment, and then you have to make a follow-up appointment, and you have to make a third appointment, and you have to get permission to do that appointment. And like their heads were spinning, where they were just like,
Yeah.
I don't understand why that would be that way. And we could step back from some of that stuff for the sake of this conversation. But yeah, I totally hear you. And it is.
Well, yo, one thing I want to say, hearing
Yeah.
you speak is
Mhm.
that's interesting. It just came to me just listening to you. Is like the generational gap. Like
Yeah.
I remember, I have a poem. It's untitled, but I have a line that mentions like a white supremacist rapper, and like it was supposed to be white supremacist rapper. The term was supposed to be an oxymoron. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so it's like where you come from, where we come from, the era that we come from in the underground, there was a point where like we was like together, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And
Yes.
like it was a black art form, but it was like whoever was in it was respecting the craft or respecting the space, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But
Yes.
now you really do have white supremacist rappers, dog. It's
Yeah.
weird.
It is strange, man, and it's hard. I find challenges in being, the age that I am, which is 42, coming from the era that I come from, where I did see that was part of my life. And in a
Mm,
lot of ways, you could say like that, from a hip hop perspective, you know, um, looking outward from hip hop culture outside to the rest of the world,
mm,
things are worse. Like it's just that simple. Like, I don't know if it was my own white privilege or not, you know what I mean? But like for me, I didn't think about that stuff. I
mm,
mean, I understood, my whiteness and the culture that I was in, and the respect that I needed to bring to the culture.
mm,
I
right.
fully understood that, and that was very established and continues to this day, obviously. But I also wasn't always like, not it just wasn't as much of a powder keg as it is today. And I think a lot of that is because, you do have a lot of white people involved in hip hop that, aren't my age, aren't from my region, aren't
Mm,
from my history, didn't, come up listening to Stretch and Bob and going to Fat Beats and going to New Eurekan and interacting with people that looked and come from different backgrounds from themselves. You have like these sort of like white hip hop fiefdoms these days that are different. And you know, it's not a matter of me trying to knock anybody. It's just a natural progression of the internet and the way that everything has grown probably too fast has led
Yeah.
some people into aspects of hip hop culture where they don't fully understand what they're interacting with. And
Right.
it kind of makes it harder in general. I mean, hip hop is something that brings people together. You
Right.
know, that's always what it's been for me. So it is really stunning. Like and but to the point of the conversation is a lot of that comes from the United States. You know, when you go overseas, you know, I know that racism is there and I know that white privilege is there, but I can't put my finger on it because I'm not a person of color, like how it's different or why
Mm.
exactly. But
Well, being like going over there, man, the most fascinating thing was, I mean, it could be anything from, customer service and the way they treat you just is with the
mhm,
utmost courtesy. Like an example that I was using before, I was writing about was, I went to go for my birthday. I went to go. Me and my wife went, and I got a pair of shoes, right? And I, the guy puts the shoes in the bag, and I go grab the bag, and and Japanese dude's like, wait, wait. I was like, all right. Dude gets done, gives us the receipt and everything. He takes the bag, he points towards the door, he walks us to the door, he hands me the bag with two hands, which is a sign of respect. And he
okay,
gives me the bag, and he's holding the door for us too, and he bows, and he stays bowed until
right,
we are out of sight.
right.
I've never been treated like that before in my life. It's just like, it's just things like that different things at the same time, though. At the same time, one of the pioneers was writing about race in Japan by McNeil, the Japan Times columnist writer. One of his well-known essays is about no one will sit next to you on the subway.
Hmm,
As a black person on the subway, people are scared to sit next to you on the subway. So like a lot of times the seat next to me will be empty.
wow.
Yeah, and it's weird how basically, like, okay, so black people in America are supposed to be a subjugated race,
Mhm,
just as in Japan, Koreans and Chinese are subjugated as well because of Japan. They were trying to build their empire. They were basically trying to copy off of world powers.
yeah.
Basically, it was a thing of, if we don't start conquering shit, we're gonna get conquered as well, maybe. Um, but they definitely were inspired to start raping and pillaging, from raping Nanking to Korea, all kinds of stuff. So they are in Japan. They're like, and the Anu people, same thing. The Anu people are like Indians in America. So like
Right.
they went through some form of dying off, being killed off. They were at some point they weren't allowed to even reproduce. You know
Wow.
what I'm saying? Yeah. So in black people in Japanese context, it's like we are thrown into that sort of perspective, but we're at the end of the line in terms of that.
Mm,
But it's fueled by the American propaganda that is exported on top of, like, okay, well, you're like Koreans, but also your own country says this about you too. But we
mm,
love we love black culture though.
yeah.
You know what I mean? They've had a black nightclub, but they don't allow black people in it.
Wow.
It's like a reggae club. You know
That's
what I mean?
crazy.
I ain't
Yeah, I
gotta worry about
mean,
nobody trying to shoot me though. You know what I'm saying? At the same
yeah.
time, not
Yeah.
necessarily, right?
Well, it's like, you know, I don't know exactly how to put this, but like it seems to me looking from the outside that like, you know, a lot of countries like Japan, there is still like fear of the unknown kind of racism, you
Mm-hmm.
know? A sort of like a you don't look like me, therefore I don't trust you, you
Right.
know. Whereas that sort of strips down racism to its core,
Mm,
in this context. Whereas in the United States, it obviously has large, well, primarily historical context to white supremacy, to slavery, to Jim Crow oppression, to all of those things that um, systematic racism that have not left the back of, if not the front of, a lot of white brains in the United States. And that
mm,
affects the way that black brains react to it. And
mm,
without that sort of like circular, you know, cyclical thing going on with systematic racism,
mm.
it's just like raw fear in these other countries. Um, you can let
Yeah.
me know if I'm right. You would be a much better judge of it than me, but
Well, I
that's what I
mean,
see, you know?
yeah, I mean, there's fear, definitely fear, but also, like I said, it's the media too. I mean,
Yeah,
so
we're
it,
exporting this supremacy to other countries. Absolutely, I see that.
but they do have their basically any country in the world who has, you know, dabbled in some form of like I'm trying to conquer this place and rape and pillage
Mm,
has some form of superiority complex. You know what I mean? If you are able to successfully subjugate another race, then that seems to sustain itself in their minds even after it was unsuccessful. There's some belief in superiority, and that seems to be used to be able to sort of keep the status quo, or everyone plays a different role in the caste system, you know.
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, definitely being back here, man. This is like it's weird. Like I said, it's no place like home. At the same time, home is fucked up, and it's
yeah.
always been fucked up. But having a new, like, looking at through a new perspective, uh, I'm still, you know, I've been here since what, mid-September, so I'm still unpacking, and you know, my wife and my child are still unpacking. The one thing that's hella positive though is, you know, my daughter is like, oh, there's other black people. Oh, it's not weird to be black. Oh, I'm just a black kid, like, and I'm Japanese, but you know, there's other people that look like me, look like my dad, and then the freakiest thing is there's not a lot of Asian people here, man.
Yeah,
It's like the flip of everything is just like crazy.
yeah, yeah. I can
Yeah.
imagine. I mean, like depending on what region of the United States you're in, yeah, it would be a 180 flip or somewhere in between. That is anything else that's positive, like any basic things
Um,
that you're enjoying, man? Is
I
there
am
anything,
enjoying.
any fun stuff? Do we
I'm
have any fun left in this country?
I am grateful to be back home. I am. I miss Japan, but at the same time, I'm grateful to be back. I mean, it's right or, you know, right or wrong, better for worse. This is my country, and this is what I know, and you know, I don't feel so much as a fish out of water. I used to really crave that. That's one of the reasons why I went traveling in the first place.
Mm,
Why I left New York, but I did.
mm.
You know, I was you know, I was just a hopeless romantic. Like my whole thing was like, I just want to go write a great American novel. I want to do that. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
like,
man.
you know,
That's where I am now. Now I'm
yeah,
hitting middle age, and that's where I am now. Where I'm like,
right, right, yeah, it's
I
gonna
think I'm
happen.
gonna paint all night and write some poems. um,
Yeah.
so
So you know,
getting into that mindset again, talk about like, creating this record back then. Like, how old were you when this stuff was written and made, and like, what did you expect from it at the time?
oh my God, man. At the time, I was, you know, I was just a poet. I was performing at the New Eurekan. I was performing at school. I was a student at SUNY Purchase. I was in the
Mm,
creative writing program, and I would throw shows. I would do open mics, and they would be packed. You know what I mean? Like, you know, the whole room would be shoulder to shoulder, and just me and a bunch of my friends having fun and being hella supportive, and you know, it was a real intimate, fun thing that we did. just being kids. And then going to New Eureka, same thing. You know, they're using words like fireworks, and I'm just blown away. You know, the thing that brought me there
Yeah.
was Slam Nation. So, you know, I saw that. I saw Soul Williams. I was at the Indian movie theater in Winter Park. This is in Orlando, Florida. And I said, I want to be a writer. That's what I want to do. Saul Williams was talking about he was talking about the rapture. He was talking about 144,000, you know. Um,
Mm.
and so fast forward, I know I'm going all over the place, but
No.
at some point, Zesto, back then it was Zest Rock, uh,
True.
DJ OQ. That was my brother, man. He stepped to me and was like, "Yo, you know, I like what you're doing. You know, you wanna put some music to that, you know?" And like, I was hearing spoken word albums, but it was like the music was background music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't really they didn't seem the music and the vocals did not speak to each other in any way, you know. But when Saul Williams came out with his album, um I wasn't a big fan necessarily of how it was produced. I like Amethyst Rockstar, but he seemed to be aware of the music, and he was, you know, rocking to the beat but not really rapping, you know what I mean? And I thought that was interesting. He was definitely the spearhead for to me as far as that movement is concerned. And so I kind of and they were sampling, you know, Rage Against the Machine is one of my favorites. So me and Justin started working, and so it's like Justin, Zesto Q, um, Bedtime Nine, shout out Bedtime Nine, Algernon, eventually a little bit down the line, E. coli, Tencho,
Mhm.
Masai Bay,
Yeah.
BMS, you know. But anyway, I'm hanging out with rappers. I'm a poet. You know what I mean? I got a self-published book out. I think therefore I am, and I'm performing, and I don't know what I'm doing on the mic in terms of like trying to, you know, perform over a beat. And so they're like giving me shit like, dude, fucking spit to the beat. Damn, what are you doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm in the booth like a million takes. You know what I'm saying? Like I at this point I'm overthinking it. You know, when we first initially started, there's this one song we had. A song was like 4 minutes long. It was called Hip Hop something, and so it was. We had a couple tracks. It was like trial by air of me just learning and trying to figure out. And then at some point, I'm hanging with these rappers. I'm like, I'm trying to impress them. You know, I'm trying to impress them with my writing game. I'm trying to impress them performing, you know, over this music. And so it was a lot of practice, and eventually, and at the time, you know, this girl I was going out with at the time, we broke up. So I was brokenhearted, and I'm writing about that, and slowly the songs came along. You know, just it was just a journey into, you know, what I was going through, running around New York City, skateboarding, being black and being paranoid, or just being paranoid in general.
Mhm.
Uh, you know what I'm saying? Just like your typical. I was kind of coming out of the whole conspiracy theory thing, but
Hmm.
at the same time, you know, I'm listening to Def Jux. I'm obsessing over that stuff. You know, anything Aesop Rock would throw out there. You know, any of those guys. You know, um, Cold Vein, any of that stuff. I was just all about.
Yeah.
So, you know, Sonic Sum, all that. You know, and that stuff really inspired me. You guys really definitely, um, you know, that to us that was another era. You know,
Word.
yeah.
What what do you think looking back on the record now, you know, when you hear it now, you know, I mean, it's, you know, we're grown men, you know what I mean? Like both of us around the same age, and you know, both of us have lived and
We are. I'm
experienced
not.
the
I'm 42.
scars. Okay, so we're the same age exactly. Wow. So, um, but yeah, I mean, you know, when you're 42, you carry different scars from different things that have happened. You've lived life, you know, you've had your ups and downs, and you have like, I would hope everyone that's watching by 42 has some kind of greater perspective, but like you had a pretty wide perspective on this record, you know, at
Appreciate it,
you
man.
know, age middle 20s, things, you know, the stuff that you were, you know, as I listen to it as a grown man, I listen back to it and I hear new things, and it's kind of remarkable.
Oh, sorry. Hold on.
Hold on.
Yeah, as far as perspective, I'm trying to think of what I was reading. I was definitely reading Soul Williams. And what else was I reading, man? I honestly, it's just been so long ago.
Yeah.
You know, but a
But
lot of stuff. Yeah.
do you catch like new gems of what you said yourself? You know, like does it hit you differently? It you know what I mean? Like or do you have a
When
different
you sent
inclination?
me, you sent me the when you sent me the masters, right? uh I was so taken back by that. You know, I was telling Short Fuse, like, and it was real. I listened to it. I think I told you, whereas I listened to it and I could hear how different it was as, you know, mastered, and I didn't know it could sound that way.
Word.
and and I hadn't listened to that record in years and years, man. And I cried because I was like,
Wow.
I was just this kid that I was just trying to kill shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wanted to impress people like you. I wanted to impress my heroes. You know, so a lot of it was me really trying to show how sharp my knife was. You know, what was it? Like one line that I love was, now I can't. Oh my God. Father compact the hydrogen gases, holy haunt this art. For spirit be like, yo, son, that shit is hot. Like, just fucking around, you know, being obsessed with like the beginning of whatever this is. You know what I mean? Like, uh, I don't think it's a simulation, but there's patterns. You know what I mean? Just all
Right.
kinds of, you know, things like that. That I was, you know, I think I found my mom's Nietzsche book when I went home, and I was reading that, and I think was it Twilight. I think that was when he kind of started to go crazy. He kept talking about, you know, he's like one of the only philosophers I ever respected was Plato, because he said the only thing I know is that there's certainty and uncertainty, and just things like that. You know, the chaos in the order, uh, yeah, make some kind of harmonious tapestry that I was really trying to tap into. You know, I had no necessarily a concept more than I was just writing these lines. I just knew they had to be good, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that approach to what you were just talking about in terms of like, you know, the certainty of uncertainty, you know, that's sort of like how all of us came up because of 9/11.
Right.
And that's what sort of like makes this relevant now. It makes a lot of that post 9/11 era of hip hop, of indie hip hop, you know, relevant now because we're back in this in a different but similar situation where the world is so untethered, particularly from the American perspective sitting here, that you know this is the calculation of it. The mental calculation sounds like this, you know, and I said on a different podcast, like a lot of the cats that came out of that late 90s and early 2000s time period, like all of our music to this day is darker than it would have been had 9/11 not happened and had, you know, the Bush era not happened. You know, all of it has like a dark edge to it. And I think that this record really captured a nice balance between, I mean, it was a very early example of poetics on music, you know, in the underground, you know.
Appreciate it, man. Thank
I
you.
think there was a period probably earlier in the 90s where like, you know, poetry and hip hop just didn't mix. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like it didn't add up together. And like it was through Saul and through Mike Ladd and through a few other people. And then that led to this record, which is still ahead of its time, you know, even with those forerunners ahead of you. You know what I'm saying? So like it's definitely something that I feel like, you know, like we've been saying, you know, I mean, to me, this record really deserved a second chance to be heard. And you know, if that's heard by, you know, a handful more people, a couple hundred people, a couple thousand more people than it did the first time, then I'm happy with that. You know, I
Yeah.
just want to do what I can um to sort of get music out there because like, you know, the thing that we've talked about with this release and what releases in this time period is, you know, this is at a time where like if you had physical releases prior to like that late 2000s era,
Right.
you might be okay, you know what I mean, you might be able to continue, you know, you had a name for yourself. if you were just starting, if you were a new name like NASA or Tracy Jones, you had to start from scratch, and most of your scratch was just trying to get your shit on iTunes at least, get it out there digitally, do something, because it's free social media, so you can't really tell people about it besides putting it on your MySpace. So like a lot of great
Crazy.
music I feel like has been completely missed because of that weird gap between digital and streaming retail and physical CDs and stores. That there was a gap. People don't realize it wasn't like a light switch overnight that, oh yeah, we used to go to a record store and now we go to iTunes. Like there was a huge gap in between where like a lot of great music wasn't heard. And this is a prime
That's
example.
true. That's true, man. I mean, yeah, Mike Ladd, dude. Mike Ladd. I remember I saw that brother at Hunter College, and yeah, he was another one that just completely blew me away. I think Zesto introduced me to him, and that's how I discovered like Antipoc Consortium,
Yeah.
and you know what I mean. Yeah, he was. Yeah, still to this day, like the After Future.
Yeah.
Uh, by hands down is one of my favorite, probably one of the most influential records for
Yeah.
me
For
personally.
me as well. I mean, Welcome to the After Future to my mind is, you know, I mean, I could make the case that it's the best indie hip hop record ever made. I mean,
Mm.
it to me, it's easily top 10, and it's one of the most influential records I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I had the really good fortune of, first of all, working on Infesticons, that entire record, and getting to know him really well at that time in his life before he left for Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And recently in 2017, I was able to um, get him on a track with me from Written at Night,
Yeah.
called Black Hole. And to me, that's still like, people would interview me and they'd say, "Who do you really want to work with?" And I would always say Mike Ladd. And I
Yeah.
probably would say the same thing, even though I've done a song with them. I love Mike Ladd's music, absolutely.
Yeah.
So huge influence. But yeah, man. I mean, I think that's sort of a decent place to leave it. Is there anything else you wanted to add about like this record or anything else in general from the creation of it?
Probably I would just say that, man, that was like probably one of my universities. You know what I'm saying? That I graduated. I really I definitely changed as a writer. Uh, it was like working with Justin. Justin, I mean, he taught me so much. There
Mm,
were, I can't tell you how much time I've spent. I have probably like two or three people aside from my wife that I've spent a lot of time with, aside from my immediate family. And he was someone that we would be in his room, and he would be playing me records, and he'd be like, okay, Gwen Stefani, like here is Gwen Stefani, like a black version, like the original somewhat singer from like the 1970s. Like this is, you know what I mean? Like introducing me to sounds that were 20, 30 years ago.
mm,
That's like, this is where they got this from. And he would just school me like that. And he would even, you know, kind of show me as far as like placing my syllables and really trying to get me to like, yo, you, because the thing I learned, probably the one of the most important things I learned was I love words, and they mean so much to me that people hear me and what I'm saying. I'm a lyrics person, but I don't consider I don't consider myself a rapper. So I had to learn how to sort of ride the beat and accentuate my words in different spaces to where musically they still make sense,
yeah.
and be more and write in a way that I'm more concise and more kind of conservative. But even if I'm using all of these conjunctions, I can just use those as like drums. Those are my drums. You know what I mean? Like I'm hitting quarter notes or whatever. Like, and I just kind of learned how to you know just practice like that, because I got to a point where I was actually overthinking it, and I was
Hmm.
feeling really self-conscious, and I was like, but I want people to understand, and if I say it this way, it's gonna kind of not they're not gonna hear that. So yeah, that was university for me, dog. Like that was a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely shout out to Zesto Q, man.
Yeah.
You know, Zesto did a lot for the indie scene in New York at a time when, you know, there weren't a lot of eyes on us. You know, it was that
Yeah,
post growth period that I came up in. You know, I mean, I was part of the Jux movement and part of the Ozone movement, and I was lucky to be around a lot of really talented people, and that helped my, you know, just like you were saying, like that helped my talent grow to a degree that it has. And you know, but in real terms, like by the time it was my turn to take a baton, not the baton, but a baton in New York, like the lights were turned out. You know, there was a lot of shit that was gone. You know,
yeah.
the hype about the scene wasn't the same. And me
Mhm.
and Zesto came up like booking shows and trying to like, you know, get people together and work on stuff together like at the same time. So we both went through it on that level. And man, yeah, definitely a talented dude that you know we should point out produced almost all the songs. Algernon did the first song, Bucktooth Alchemy, and the bonus track that's on there, Masai Bay produced. That's God's Waiting Room,
Yeah.
and but he recorded everything with you, and you know,
A lot of my friends that I grew up with in Central Florida, they actually don't know that that song is about them and that I shout them out. I don't think a lot of them have actually even heard that song. So I
wow.
think it'll be interesting for them. They'll be very surprised. Like, yo, like, yeah, I shot. So yeah, that and shout out to Ari Greenfield. He did the scratches on One Legged Pedestal. He was, at school. He was a him and there was like three other DJs, man. They, I had an open mic thing and they came through with like six turntables and they were doing the jam session. And that was before I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know DJs got together and like did jam sessions together. And yeah, that blew my mind. So I haven't spoken to that dude in years, but wherever you are, Ari, shout out.
Word, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, let me um let me ask you this. So like where can people find like your current writing and what are you working on you know in terms of output these days, you know, like right now?
Oh, Jesus. Right now, I am on deadline for a story. I'm writing for. Right when I got here, I pretty much just started writing for the Charlotte Observer. They have a section called Charlotte Five. I wrote something for Queen City Nerve, which is another local paper here. What else am I doing, man? I got a book. I'm working on a book, basically about being a black father living in Tokyo, Japan. Um, and I got that I'm working on. What else? Those are the main things. Mostly, doing a lot of freelance writing, working on the book, uh, making sure my child, understands what's going on here, and looking out for my kid and holding it down. But if I haven't recorded in years, but if I ever get in a place to where I can record or I meet up with people, I could see myself doing something.
Yeah.
But I haven't recorded in probably like what 10, 11 years maybe. I think last time I recorded maybe was with shout out to Dig Dug
Yeah, word.
Berkeley. Yeah. So
Yeah. That's
we'll see.
yeah,
Yeah.
man. Hopefully that does happen at some point, man. It'd be ill to hear what you put out there now, you know,
Yeah.
all these years later. But, you know, it's a pretty remarkable story, man, to put together a record like this kind of in the moment, you know, back in that time period, like that Bush era, and have it end up being the only release that you've put out, you know, as a full release. They've done plenty of other
Yeah.
songs. And have it stand up as well as I think it does, and I'm sure you know it does.
Yeah.
That's
Appreciate
a
it, man.
pretty amazing thing, man. It's a very unique story. So I'm glad to
Thanks,
be a
bro.
part of getting that out there. And
Thank you, man. I feel honored, man. Like when you hit me up, I was really was not expecting. So thank you.
word, man. Yeah, man. I'm
Yeah.
honored that you were down to do it again, and that that we can do something like this. You know, after all these years later, you know, to
Yeah.
still be in touch and to be able to put out some dope music and you know get down and for you to kind of be like part of uncommon history with one of these and You
What
know,
up?
literally BUNR 01. So I'm super pumped, man. But yeah,
Yeah,
so we'll wrap up here as my mouse doesn't work again. But I should say, you know, everyone that's watching, please subscribe. We're gonna have more stuff like this, talks with artists, other sorts of YouTube podcasts on the channel, and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave some comments, man. If you've, you know, whatever kind of comments you want, if you've traveled, have any perspective, if you checked out Tracy's album, things like that. Let's talk it up.
yeah,
And
you can I forgot to even shout out my own website, dog, themicrogiant.com. That's
word,
me. Yeah,
nice.
thank
Yeah,
you.
it's a great. Yeah, it's true. I was waiting to see if you're gonna do that or if it was, you know.
My bad, dog.
Yeah.
I've just got, you know, my hands in too many bowls. I just, yeah, the obvious one, son.
Word. Yeah, Micro John is a great site, man. You gave me the opportunity to do a couple mixtapes, man. I do
Yeah.
a you know, full circle. I do a reggae DJ show every other weekend. I actually did one yesterday morning. So every other Saturday I do a show live on makerpuckradio.nyc here on Staten Island. And it's because of my, you know, passion and love for Jamaican music that I've ended up doing that. And you know, I'll spin anything from early ska to 90s dance hall to Euro dub stuff today, anything in between, 80s digital, all that, 70s re. And the point of me saying that is like, you know, your site gave me the opportunity to do one of my first reggae mixes I ever did. Like
Oh, word.
that was one of the first. I didn't tell you that at the time, but that was one of the first reggae mixes I ever did. Was up on the Micro Giant, and like, you
Word.
know, over time, you know, obviously, like that's the influence that leads to something that looks like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That
Word up.
is obviously like where I'm taking my influence from and trying to bring my passion for that part of vinyl culture to
Yeah.
indie hip hop and specifically, you know, things that I have passion for, you know, and that Short
Word
Freeze has
up.
passion for too. So
Word up.
with that, we're gonna be out.
All right.
Best wishes and yeah, man. Peace, everybody.
All right, peace.